Hi, it's Amy Shaw here. I am a shamanic practitioner in the Austin, Texas area. I also am the founding editor of the Urban Shaman magazine. What I want to talk to you about today is a really serious thing, and it's coming up on my radar. It isn't actually something that's new to me. I've been contacted before by similar people, but let me kind of get into it so you know what I'm talking about. So yesterday I was driving on the freeway and I got a phone call from a random number. Usually it'll say likely scam or something like that, and then I don't answer it. It didn't say that. It wasn't a recognizable number, but it didn't say that, so I answered it. And it was a gentleman who started pitching to me that they found me on the internet, they think my story is really amazing, they would like for me to come on their blog radio show, and this and that. Well, I have been contacted by similar people before, and so it was a familiar sort of script. So I knew right away that really what they were trying to do was sell me something. So I asked him that immediately, if that was the case. And he said, well, yes, if you're asking me if there's a fee, there is a fee. And then he proceeded to tell me why they charge a fee. And I told him, that's great, but I can't talk right now. I'm actually on the freeway driving, so you'll have to schedule my time. So we did. We scheduled it for 7:30 this morning. So I got up early. I got on that call. I listened to him pitch for about 35 minutes to me how amazing their program is and all the things that they could do for me for only $1,500. And so what it is, it's a 30-minute blogcast on some very well listened to blogcasting website. It's a particular show or particular channel on that blogcasting website. And so for 30 minutes, $1,500, and they will produce for you a highly scripted, highly favorable piece where you appear to become the guest on this show that's hosted by, some this and that famous person. You're his special guest. You've been hand selected by him. And he will do this fabulous introduction of you, of how wonderful you are. And there's tightly scripted questions and answers, which are beforehand rehearsed, developed with their team, so that when you go into the actual recording session, you're very polished, very clean, you come across very favorable. And, the goal is to actually get listeners to reach out to you and pay you for your services. So this company targets female spirit workers of all sorts of different spiritual genres and practices, who are, not very well known and still building their practice. And so, in a sense, it's considered advertising. So like I said, this isn't shocking or new to me. But just listening to him this morning, even though I was kind of half asleep and not fully, in my brain yet, I still was picking up, I was leaning in and, putting on my shamanic skills and really assessing the language that this guy was using and the sort of framework that he was coming at it. And I hung up from that phone call, and it was actually quite disturbing for me. And I'll tell you why. Because I saw so plain and clearly how it was a pretty insidious level of sorcery that he was selling, that he was believing in, that he was selling, that he was believing in, that he was practicing and trying to sell me and enlist me in. And what do I mean by sorcery? It's confusing. A lot of people don't really know what it is, or they think they know what it is, and what they think it is sometimes much more obvious and malevolent than what true sorcery actually is. True effective sorcery is appears to be better than what it is, and it appears to be something that it's not, and it's not always easy to detect. But as he was talking to me about people, meaning the people that would be listening to these podcasts, the general population, nameless, faceless people, these thousands of nameless, faceless people that would be listening to this podcast, as he was talking about them, he was talking about how people really aren't that smart and how they're easily manipulated by basic psychology. He was talking about how they have attention spans of gnats and, just this very derogatory language that demonstrated to me he doesn't have a real high respect or honor for people, for individuals. He doesn't respect their ability to be discerning or have intelligence or to not be manipulated. And so because he's viewing people like this, and he's telling me, here's this formula. We have this formula. It works. We've tried it hundreds of times and it works. Essentially what he's saying to me is I have a magic formula. Quite literally, I have a magic formula, and I can manipulate people with this formula to such a degree that they will want to throw themselves at your feet, pay you tons of money. And he's telling me, he's saying things like, at the end of the 30 minutes, they're going to think that you walk on water. They're going to think that you're the most fantastic, most amazing, best healer on the planet. And they're going to want to basically like sell their houses and give everything they have to you because this and this and this. I mean, he was like really trying to sell this thing to me. It's interesting because I think, this particular company, this, targets female spirit workers. And I'm thinking, a lot of female spirit workers, if they're really on their game, would see through this and would see that, we're not trying to get rich. We're not trying to manipulate people. We're not trying to make people think that we walk on water or promise something that we can't deliver to them. And so it really, like hanging up from him, I felt a sickness in my stomach actually at the level of sorcery and how obvious it was. And I don't personally listen to a lot of podcasts, but it really got me thinking like how much of that in the podcasting community is that, where it's presented like, here's my show, I'm an amazing guy, I'm so amazing, I'm choosing the best, top, talented, most amazing guests to come on my show, and they're selling this to you, when in actuality that person's paying $1,500 for that spot, and to be, touted as that. How much of that really is going on, And that's the level of sorcery that's happening in the world today. It's everywhere. It's pervasive everywhere. In magazines, in books, music, through videos, through just everywhere. Documentaries, podcasts. I mean, you name it. It doesn't stop. The news. We are inundated all around us with this level of sorcery that we don't always see. What we see is the news anchor looking professional, makeup fully done, hair fully done, wearing professional clothes, nice polished script. Everything looks and appears so, of course, it looks so polished and so professional that, of course, this has to be a real thing. Look how professional these people are. They take their job serious. In actuality, they're being puppeteered in a sense. They're trying to make a paycheck. And I'm not, please don't, I'm not sitting here like from this conspiracy theory place of saying like, oh, let's go like kill them all. And I'm not even implying that at all. And I'm not saying it's us versus them. I'm not saying that or trying to perpetuate that in any way. I fully recognize that the man that called me this morning, he may or may not be conscious of his degree of investment in the sorcery. He may not realize that what he's actually doing and selling is sorcery. He may not. He may be just passionate about his job. He may really think that he's trying to help people, and he may also have to feed himself, take care of himself, and maybe even a family. So I'm not like morally judging him and thinking, oh my God, that guy was so evil, he was so bad, and how did it's not even on that level at all. I recognize him as a human being too, and I honor him as a human being too. But, I have to wonder, like, how much is he co-scripted in this whole process, and how much is he really conscious and aware? The way that he was talking about people is a very sorcerous way to talk about people, sort of like he was coming at them from above them, like he was better than them. They don't even have the attention span of a gnat. They're not intelligent. They're easily manipulated. I mean, he's already coming at it from like, I'm better than them, this place of superiority. And, because they're so easily manipulated, they're just like little sheep. I'm going to sell you a formula that's I know to be tried and true to manipulate these people to get what you want out of them. And, that's sorcery. It's just straight up. There's no other way to describe it. And it's so pervasive in our culture. So really what I wanted to talk about today is not just that, but, I hung up from him and I was thinking about $1,500 is a lot of money. I think it's really interesting that he was appealing to me, and they had done a lot of research on me. He knew a lot of pieces of my story. He talked to me about the pieces of my story and was telling me, like how compelling it is and people are going to want to hear your story. And he was really, good at trying to sales pitch me, or at least he thought he was. I wasn't even for a second buying it because I'm not in the least about ego inflation. There wasn't even a tiny part of me that was like, oh yeah, I want to be on a broadcast. That's awesome. I don't want to hear myself talk, actually. And then the idea of paying somebody else $1,500 to hear myself talk, it just wasn't even a consideration to me, in all honesty. But I was thinking, as he was telling me how amazing my story was and how people really need to hear it and people are going to be really compelled and inspired by it, I was thinking, then why do I have to pay you $1,500 for the right to tell my story? You should actually be paying me $1,500 to come on your show and tell my story, if it's that compelling and that amazing, right? But anyway, I knew, I hung up from him, and I was thinking about $1,500 is a lot of money, and in terms of advertising, I was looking at it from pure business sense, not any kind of personal way whatsoever of, I want to tell my story and I'm an amazing, but I wasn't even considering that at all. I was thinking in the practical business sense. Do I want to spend $1,500 on advertising in this manner? $1,500 is a lot of money, and I could probably get a lot of advertising and do a lot of things with $1,500. A lot better and more things than a 30-minute talking head telling my story. So, but then I started thinking about, well, what would I do if I had $1,500 to spend on marketing, on advertising? How would I spend it? What would I do? And then it sort of brought up like this whole idea of ethics and how pervasive sorcery is in our culture, and like what channels could I even go down that weren't employing some type of sorcery, and just the whole thing made me feel really gross. And then I started feeling like, well, why do I even have to advertise at all? I come from this very intrinsic place. I have this very intrinsically altruistic part of me that's what's motivating me to move ahead and do this project, to invest my resources in this project. And so that part of me would be happy if I had 100,000 people, because I put a lot of resource into this. And the more people that get exposed to it, ultimately the better it is. It's the means to the end. But to say I need or want 100,000 people because that's so much money, and having these targets and this perspective of money, it's just not, because I know to ultimately get there, it's going to take compromises that I may not be willing to make. It's a really difficult thing to like hold that balance between being like open and accepting and having a spirit of unity. The second you start like controlling and getting rigid, you could very easily squash creativity. You could very easily squash soul and hurt people in that process. So you can't be too much of like this controlling person. You have to allow things to open up and unfold and organically develop. But at the same time, anybody that steps out and does any type of public project, whatever that is, bears an enormous responsibility, an ethical responsibility to guard that, to guard the truth, to guard the integrity of it, just all the way around. We're responsible for what we say and how we affect people, how we influence them. We're responsible for that. And it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to balance that, being open with also being guarded and protective and maintaining integrity. It's one of the reasons that I decided I didn't want to go down the route of advertising, because once you start accepting advertising dollars, you're no longer vetting your advertisers. You're just taking their money because that's your income source. Give me the money, okay. You're not vetting them. And how do you know that advertisement, behind that advertisement, isn't also sorcerous things going on or dangerous things going on, or that people can't or wouldn't be hurt through that process in some way? You don't know. Or people that are teaching something weird, you don't know. Ultimately, am I responsible for everybody in the whole world? No. Ultimately, is every person responsible for themselves to make their own decision, to use their own discernment, their own intelligence, their own wisdom? Yes, ultimately they are. So I'm not trying to look at people like, oh, they're just sheeple and I have to protect them all. But by the same token, I do bear some responsibility for my own integrity. And when I see something clearly that doesn't resonate with me, that doesn't seem right, that seems, like it's coming from a sorcerer's place, I have to call that out. I'm compelled to do that. It's that Sagittarian nature in me, that centaur, I carry that bow and that arrow. And those of you that are also in that spectrum astrologically, you understand what I'm saying. Like, we aim sharp and tight, for the truth, for integrity, and we're truth seekers and we're spiritual warriors, and, don't compromise. We're very uncompromising, actually, within our nature. And, that can feel funny to some people. They can take that certain way. But for me, it's never out of a sense of like arrogance or to say that my way is the only right way or my way is the best way. It's to say I can clearly discern between what's true and what's untrue. And I always aim for the truth in my integrity. I always guard the truth with my whole heart in integrity. And that gets into this whole discussion of, well, what is really the truth? Because we're living in this times where like everything's relative, and all this quantum physics and these ideas about quantum physics is everybody lives in their own reality. We live in this multiverse reality, where everybody is in their own universe, and all these kind of things. And I don't want to get off into all of that and the intricacies of that. There's truth in it and there's untruth in it. But I think for me, ultimately, because we are living in this time, where my spiritual circles are very tainted, and a lot of times by this idea that dualism is bad. If you slip into dualism and you start talking about things in terms of like black or white or right or wrong or good or evil, when you start talking about these things that you've somehow slipped or fallen or de-evolved, or you're less evolved or you're less spiritual than other people who can see everything as one, and that we're all in this together and it's all unity and there is no good and there is no bad and it all serves us and all these things. There is truth to that too, so don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing it, and I'm not saying there's not truth to that. There is absolutely truth to it. And I fully believe in unity. I fully believe that we all are one in unity. And I fully believe that, quote unquote, bad things can serve us if we transmute them within ourselves to turn them to good. They can serve us. But I also know that bad things potentially can destroy people. They can injure their souls. They can even physically kill them. So, we cannot be in this ambiguous state where we can't decide between what's good and bad, because to do so would be less spiritual. Because this isn't really about judgment. It's about truth. It's about truth and integrity, and understanding that intentions matter. When somebody's telling you, they're using language like, oh, attention span of a gnat, and unintelligent and easily manipulated, when they're telling you, these are like clues. These are red flags that this person is not coming from this perspective of honor and respect and benevolence and sort of protectiveness over people. They're coming at them from this sense of, I know how to control and manipulate people for my gain. And that is sorcery. It's just plain and simple sorcery. And so it gets into that, is what's good and bad and right and wrong, and calling a spade a spade. I'm not afraid to do that. It's part of my spiritual warrior nature. It's why I'm here. And I'm not afraid to do it. Even though I get a lot of backlash from people, who think that they're more spiritual than me because I see things in this way. But it's why I'm here. And so ultimately, like for me, moving forward with this urban shaman project, because it is kind of the thing that I birthed, and I take responsibility for it. My ethics are the number one thing. I take that with me. My desire to seek the truth, guard the truth, is my number one thing. And so I have to balance that. And I'm sharing this not to say like that's been threatened in any way, that anybody's threatened that, or that I feel threatened, or none of that's going on. I'm sharing it just to say, like, this happened to me this morning, where this dark sorcerer was trying to get $1,500 from me to sell me his magic formula. And I saw it clearly, and it was gross. And it just made me think of all these things, and integrity, and how do we hold this space as the Urban Shaman Project of integrity in this world where we are surrounded by sorcery and people that lack integrity. I think it's really fundamentally one of the difficult things that all of the spirit workers in my circles struggle with, whether they're shamanic or whatever else they are, light workers, whatever, they work with angels, whatever they're doing. I have a whole plethora of spirit workers in my circles. And I think that we all, every single one of us, are struggling with this very thing that I'm talking about, is that we have this innate desire to help people. We're compelled by it. Most of us are wounded healer types, and we're compelled by that. We want to be of service. We're not looking to be millionaires doing it. We want to be able to feed our families and support ourselves. But a lot of us are struggling even to do that. I mean, there's so many of us that are homeless, and it's a struggle. It's hard. And is it because we're not good at what we do? No, it's because we're not out there advertising our asses off to get the clients, to get the money, it's like I was telling the guy this morning. Honestly, I'm not at that level where I'm prepared to accept any more work, like shamanically. I'm kind of, to tell you the truth, getting tired of doing distance work. I understand it's part of the game now because of this, digital world that we're living in and how it connects us all. But I like to be with people in community, developing relationship in eye to eye, space to space, energy to energy presence. That's what I prefer. The work for me is more powerful that way. It's more meaningful. It's more connecting. I just prefer that. And quite frankly, a lot of the magic is just me. It's my presence. It's who I am. It's what I bring. It's not even anything I can say or do. It's just me being in your energetic space. That's a big part of my magic. So to try to do this in a distance thing, so this concept of like paying a bunch of money to get a bunch of more distance clients, it just wasn't the thing for me. And I think a lot of spirit workers are in that same situation. They want to make enough money to support themselves, but they're not trying to like go out and, make people think that they walk on water, or make people think that they're the most powerful, amazing healer on the planet, and they don't want people falling at their feet. I mean, that in itself is a level of sorcery. That you would even allow somebody to hand over their power to you, and that you would so easily accept that is actually quite disturbing to me. It's quite disturbing to me. I can't operate like that. I just can't. There's no amount of money on this planet that's worth that. If I have to starve and be homeless in the street, then I'd rather do it than sell my soul. And that's just the thing. And I think a lot of spirit workers are in that place, and we're feeling that tension, and we're feeling that as well. And it's a struggle because we are in this weird market economy that's driven by sorcery. And, as that guy was telling me that people have the attention span of a gnat, I was thinking to myself as well, if that is the truth and that's what you think, then why are you contributing to that by feeding into it more and more and more and more? Because it's this marketing plan. If we don't give people what they want, then they're not going to buy. So to give people what they want, which is a short to the point, and then we're going to keep doing this until we take it to a level where human beings have completely lost the ability to even think for themselves at all. They won't know how to discern anything. They won't know how to handwrite a letter. They won't know how to speak in English anymore because we're all going to be using, a text language and emojis to speak to each other. I mean, if we keep feeding into this, if we keep, delving into the addiction of social medias, and we keep dumbing people down and down and down and addicting them more and more and more, this is what we're going to get. We're going to get more and more of the same. So this idea that, people have the attention span of a gnat, so you have to give them the attention span of a gnat or they're not going to buy, to me it's just feeding into the same cycle. And why would I want to pay you $1,500 to feed into the same shit that's already happening and already going on? It doesn't make any sense to me. But for those of us that are breaking out of that system, that don't want to be in that system and don't want to contribute to that system anymore, that want to offer something different, a different way of doing business, a different way of thinking about our clients and our customers, and a different way of thinking about marketing, those of us that are trying to do this more innovative work are struggling to find our way because we're kind of like outside of this system. We're outsiders. And, it's hard. It's a struggle. But you know what? It goes back to what I was saying. Would I rather have 100,000 subscribers that I got through some level of sorcery to get them here, or would I rather just have 5 people that are here on this team in my community because they believe in what I'm doing, they believe in my integrity, they see my passion, they hear my heart? Which would I rather have? Well, I'd rather have the 5 people, quite honestly. It comes back down to, again, my integrity, why I do what I do, who I am, and the importance of that to me. So I just wanted to share that with you today, that like this is what I'm thinking about, this sorcery and just this crazy world that we're in, and how inundated we are with it, how it's everywhere pressing in on us, how difficult it is for a lot of spirit workers right now to be doing the work that they're doing and to not feel supported in that, to not be supported in that, to not be really keen on, using sorcery to get, to a level where they can support themselves financially, they're trying to stay in integrity and stay true to themselves. And it's a struggle. And it's not a temptation. I'm telling you, because I know these people firsthand. They're not even tempted to sell themselves out. The struggle is that they're suffering. The struggle is that they're having a hard time making ends meet. And, the struggle is that a lot of them are ending up homeless and, having to go take jobs that are like draining them and sucking their life energy out, and they're not able to do the spirit work that they're called here to do, and they're trying to figure out how to make that work in the jobs that they're in. And I'm just telling you, it's really rough out there for a lot of people. I'm not in that particular situation, but I'm very sensitive to the people that are. I know how hard it is for them right now. I know these times that we're living in right now are very trying times. And, while people are saying unity, 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 it feels like the chasm between is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's more and more and more of a separation between people that are like waking up and realizing, oh, hey, look at all this sorcery around. And the sorcerers that are still there going, yeah, we're in control. And, we're going to continue doing what we're doing. And so that chasm feels like it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And, it's hard. We're in hard times, really, really hard times. Major, major mountain moving transitions are happening in our lifetimes right now as I'm speaking. And don't get me wrong, that is like so exciting. I mean, it's why we're here. It's so exciting and it's amazing to see the transformation and the changes. And I'm encouraged. I don't live in fear on any level at all. I'm super encouraged by it. Even if the worst thing that could ever possibly happen, in terms of conspiracy theory, even if all of that happened, I still would be excited about it because it's change. It's something different. And I might not see it in my lifetime. It might come in the next generation or the generation after. But at least I know that something radical is happening and it's going to shift. And it's a long overdue needed shift. So I'm excited. I think these times we're in are incredible. And I think it's why we're all here right now, but they're not easy times, and that's all I'm saying. It's not easy. And we have to be discerning. This is the final point that I want to make in this talk here is to stress the importance of how discerning that we have to be, because it's all around us. Even in the most benevolent thing that you could think of, there's tinges of it, whatever it is, in there. It's all around us. It's pervasive. And so we can't, when we expose ourselves to these things, whether they're movies or podcasts or YouTube channels or Netflix series or whatever it is we're exposing to, we have to be ultimately discerning and picking out the gold and the pearls out of it and leaving the shit, leaving it there. And leaving it there doesn't mean like completely shutting down and saying, okay, that guy just said something that totally offended me and he's like clueless and I thought he was 10 times more spiritual and now I see he's not spiritual at all, so I'm going to stop listening to him. That's not necessary either. We don't have to throw the baby out completely with the bathwater because it's everywhere. It's pervasive in and through everything. So we have to get better skilled at using our logic, using our discernment, using our intelligence, using our wisdom, using our experience, using our spidey senses and all these gifts that we have to glean out those treasures out of it and leaving behind the gunk. And chewing, it requires chewing and chewing and chewing and chewing on something before you even get to the place of deciding, is this something I really actually want to consume in me, or am I just going to spit it out now? Now that I've done chewing it all, am I just going to spit it out, or am I going to take it in to me? These are things that we have to decide ultimately about every single thing we allow ourselves to be exposed to. And never swallowing anything whole. Ever. I'm really lucky for that I've always had that sort of rebellious questioning spirit. I mean, it's been my motto for at least 5 years, but actually I've lived it my entire life, is this concept of questioning everything. As a child, it got me into all kinds of trouble because I would sit in Sunday school and I would be like, and why did this? And, was constantly questioning. And, sometimes they didn't like it. Just stop questioning, shut up, just believe, and people don't want to give an answer. A lot of times it's because they don't know the answer themselves, because they haven't asked the question. So because they haven't asked the question, they don't actually even know the answer. So they just want to shut you down too. But I've spent my whole life questioning. And I just think that the times that we're in right now are times that we cannot afford to not question. We have to question every single thing that's coming at us. Because when people say we are in an information war, that's the truth. That is the absolute truth. We are in a full-on information war. And, the prize is our heart and our minds, our souls. That's the prize. And so this is serious business. This isn't just on a level of belief and logic and, all the cognitive things. This is really on a spiritual level. And it is a war. And I know people talk about that, going back to that duality thing, right and wrong, black and white. Why does it, we're just going to, if we keep looking at everything as a war, then we're never going to stop fighting. We're always going to be in war. Yeah, that's true. That is true. But there is an ultimate truth of what's right, and there is an ultimate truth of what's wrong, and it doesn't have to be us versus them per se. It's just being cognizant and aware of what the good is and what the bad is, and disentangling it all, and not making moral judgments on people, or not condemning people to hell, or not banishing them to this place, or it's not on that level of a moral judgment. It's on the level of discerning for ourselves, becoming more critical with the information that's coming through to us, chewing on it more, gleaning out what's important, and letting go of all the rest. And not allowing ourselves to be so easily manipulated and persuaded by all this dark sorcery that's around. And we're not going to start seeing the sorcery until we start really paying attention. Open our eyes and paying attention and questioning. The next time you listen to a blogcast, research it. Find out who's the host of the show, how do people get on the show, and all that kind of stuff. If you research it and you find out, well, people get on the show by paying to be on the show, well, then, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad guest or that they're preaching things that aren't true. It just means that you have one more piece of information in your discernment tool belt to decide if this person's really a valid person that you want to listen to or give your power over to. Now, that's really what I'm talking about here, is giving your power over to people and allowing them to dictate to you what to believe or who you are or how things should be or how your reality is. No, you have to be in charge. You're responsible for that. So you have to take responsibility. So that's really what I want to stress today, and how all that relates to the Urban Shaman Project and the integrity that I bring to it, the commitment to integrity that I bring to it. And, my desire to fend off sorcery as much as is in my power to do so. And that even means not participating with it as it's occurring outside of the Urban Shaman Project, but in collaborations with, advertisers or services or other organizations, protecting the sacred vessel that we're trying to create with the Urban Shaman Project. So I hope that encourages you. This isn't my sales pitch. It's just me sharing my heart and saying where I'm at and saying what's true to me and how I want to move forward. And I hope that encourages you, if nothing else, to just come check out the magazine and see, is this something, that I can get something from? Is there benefit for me here? Is this, what's going on over there? Check us out. And if there's something that you see that you like, subscribe. Please subscribe. I mean, it would tremendously support us in our effort in doing what we're doing. And that's really all I wanted to say today. So have a great day, you guys. I hope to see you over there. Check it out. Let me know what you think. If you don't like it, that's fine. I'd like to know why. What about it doesn't resonate with you. And it's okay, if it doesn't. But I'm always curious about, what people like and what they don't like and why. It probably isn't going to change how I do anything that I do. But it just helps me understand, who might not be, interested in our project and why they might not be. And so, you can be honest and upfront about that. And I appreciate it. I appreciate getting to know all of you. So have a great day, and I hope to see you over there.